Now let's just get right into the big story first before we even go into all the individual matches. We'll start with the biggest match of all, the big match on the show, the main event. But it all ties in to the story that everybody has been talking about since Friday night. A bad episode of Smackdown that really was not at all noteworthy until the last 10 seconds of the show. I gotta hand it to them. They got me way more interested in this show tonight than I would have been just in those final 10 seconds. A simple camera pan to the right changed my whole perspective and all my enthusiasm for this event tonight. It was a legitimately shocking cliffhanger heading into Payback with the return of Paul Heyman to television since, I think, his first time on TV since WrestleMania. But not alongside Brock Lesnar. It came alongside Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is now a Paul Heyman guy. Which is interesting on so many levels, because WWE has been very resistant. And maybe Heyman has. But WWE has been very resistant to having any new Paul Heyman guys or girls. We never did get a Heyman girl. For a while there, I thought it might be Ronda Rousey. But they've been very resistant to adding any more people as a Heyman guy over the years, outside of Brock Lesnar. They tried with Curtis Axel for a few months, and then they gave up on that quickly. They tried with Cesaro. There was a lot of enthusiasm for that the night after WrestleMania 30. They gave up on that far too quickly. And then CM Punk was really the only success outside of Lesnar as far as linking someone with Paul Heyman, since Heyman came back to the company in 2012. You know, he and Punk had a nice run together when Punk was WWE champion. So there's that aspect to it, that having anybody other than Brock Lesnar as a Heyman guy, it just feels fresh and unique because it's been so long since we've had anybody but Brock bouncing around behind Heyman. And where does Brock Lesnar fit into all this? You know, could it be a case where Brock Lesnar comes back soon and because they're in the Thunderdome, right? They're out of the PC. They're in an actual arena now, and for that reason alone, and the pyro and everything, I kind of half expect Brock Lesnar to be back on TV in the next month or so. But I don't know. I've heard nothing new about his status and what their plans for him may be. But could it be a case where Brock comes back soon and Heyman has one of his guys on Raw in Brock Lesnar and the other guy in Roman Reigns on Smackdown? Or maybe this will create tension with Lesnar when he comes back. And believe me, he will be back. Brock Lesnar is not done with WWE. WWE is not done with Brock Lesnar. What else is he going to do where he can make the kind of money he makes working for WWE? Is he going to tease another return to the Octagon? How old is he now? 42? 43? The guy knows he can make easy money without getting hit in the face working for WWE. Handful of dates each year. He's not stupid. He's not going to give that up. So believe me, he will be back. It is a question not of if, but when. And the payoff for the SummerSlam tagline this year, you'll never see it coming. That was the big subtitle for SummerSlam 2020. Well, the whole payoff for it, the whole reason for it, was the return of Roman Reigns last Sunday after the Fiend beat Braun Strowman to regain the Universal title. He attacked the Fiend, did Roman. Then he speared Strowman on the floor. He held up the championship. He yelled at Braun. He said that I made you. He called the Fiend just a freak in a mask. He was wearing a shirt that said wreck everyone and leave. Very similar to the old Steve Austin raise hell and leave t-shirt. Roman Reigns came off very heelish at SummerSlam. But he also came off like more of a badass that people would want to cheer for. More so than at any other point, probably since his days in the Shield. This is the Roman Reigns that would have been cheered wildly by the fans if he had been booked this way from the start. That's what's kind of frustrating about the whole thing. But I never thought that they were actually going to go full heel with him. I just thought, okay, they're giving him a harder edge. That's what I thought coming out of SummerSlam a week ago. It's not necessarily a heel turn. They're playing shades of gray. We're getting a more aggressive side of Roman, which is great. But I didn't think it would actually be a heel turn. And the addition of Paul Heyman, though, that changes everything. Now on SmackDown, Vince McMahon made an appearance. He didn't go out to the ring. He was in the back. But Vince McMahon was on TV. He sent Adam Pearce on a mission to get signatures from all three men in the Payback main event. Because I guess we can't have a match unless they put their John Hancock on the contract. So he sent Adam Pearce to go get signatures from The Fiend, from Braun Strowman, and from Roman Reigns. They have a triple threat, no-holds-barred match for the championship tonight at Payback. They are wasting no time in getting Roman Reigns back into the championship picture. And so off went Adam Pearce. He dressed up as Postman Pearce. He dressed up as a mailman entering the Firefly Funhouse. Like he was Reba the Mail Lady from Pee-wee's Playhouse. I actually like that, to be honest with you. I think they should have more human characters ring the doorbell and come on into the Funhouse. Make more cameos in the Firefly Funhouse. All right, we have now we have Postman Pearce. We can get Kevin the Woodsman. We got Bruce the Balloon Maker, who's always full of hot air. I mean, you can come up with a whole cast of characters. So he got Braun's signature a little bit later on. Braun just murdered poor Drew Gulak. And when he finally got to Roman, Reigns wanted to first read through the contract, which is very smart. He is a smart man. Do not sign a contract without first reading it. So he wanted to read the contract. They cut away to a match. When they came back at the very final scene of the show, we saw Roman Reigns sitting on a couch, looking up, talking to Adam Pearce. And he said to Adam Pearce, he gave him an ultimatum, and he said, fix the changes that we need. He goes, you do that, and I'm telling you right now, I will be at Payback on Sunday. That is a promise. I guarantee it. I'll be at Payback. I'm going to wreck everyone and leave, and I will win back my Universal Championship that I never lost in the first place. And then he looked over at somebody off camera, off screen, next to him, and he smirked. And then he looked back, and he uttered a familiar phrase. He said, and that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. And the camera slowly panned over to the right to show Paul Heyman sitting on the couch next to Roman. And Heyman looks up at Adam Pearce, and he says, believe that. And that's how they go off the air. I'm telling you, people could not give two shits about this show, and I'm one of them, until that final scene. And that's all anybody has been talking about since then. In those 10 seconds, they got people more interested in SmackDown and the WWE product than any single thing they have done probably in months. Thunderdome aside, I'm talking like creatively, storyline-wise. It was a tremendous ending to the show. I don't know that I've ever seen a more buzzworthy, tremendous ending to such a horrible, crappy show in my life. This SmackDown was just nothing this week. And now it has me completely intrigued heading into the pay-per-view. This is how they are going to get people hooked for Payback, 1 week after SummerSlam. We talked about this before. What's going to be the big hook coming out of SummerSlam? I guess it was the return of Roman, but what we saw Friday night just took it to the next level. And I think it'll work. This is something that fans have been clamoring for now for years. Not everybody, but a lot of people have been clamoring for this now for years. The Roman Reigns heel turn. It's like Bigfoot, right? You hear stories about it, but you never actually see it. And I do think he's a heel now. He may be the badass heel that the people want to cheer for, the cool heel, but without fans in the buildings, they don't have to worry so much about people, not reacting the way that they want them to react. I mean, hell, all the virtual fans in the Thunderdome, we learned this week, are being coached on how to react and what to chant and what to do and what not to do. Which is fine if that's how they want to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, the people are still going to cheer and boo for whoever they want to cheer and boo for. But, they're still adding that fake crowd noise, which is awful. I mean, it's just awful. I mean, I feel like There's a way to do it. But what they've been doing the last couple of shows, and they did it on TV this week, they'll just have this constant, steady stream of background noise that never changes, regardless of what's going on in the ring, regardless of what the person in the ring might be saying during their promo. It sounds so fake, and it's no good. It's no good. But my point is, they're still piping in the noise. They're not going to have to worry about an arena full of people who are booing someone they're supposed to cheer or cheering someone they're supposed to boo. They're in control. They are in control right now. They can literally, we have now reached a point in WWE history where they can literally push a button and get rid of any fan in the quote-unquote audience that they want to get rid of. They just push a button and you're gone. Your box turns black and they replace you with someone else. That's the world we now live in. It sounds like some kind of dystopian 80s movie that we are now living in. But they control it. They control everything now. And it looks to me like, Braun Strowman is a heel. There was no ruse with Alexa Bliss. I thought maybe it was a setup. They were going to trap the Fiend. Nope. Braun Strowman is a heel. In fact, there was no Alexa Bliss at all at SummerSlam. Roman Reigns coming back seems like it might have been a late addition or a late plan here because everything was being built up with this storyline with Braun and Alexa was attacked by the Fiend, and what role, if any, is she going to play at the pay-per-view? And then the Smackdown before SummerSlam a week ago, remember that? Nikki Cross doing a sit-down interview in studio, talking about how concerned she was for Alexa, and now it got me thinking, well, maybe Nikki is going to be involved in some way. And we didn't see either one of them at SummerSlam. They were not involved at all with that main event at SummerSlam, even though they were teasing it. Braun is clearly a heel now. That's the better role for him. Putting Heyman with Roman, to me, it's pretty clear. It positions him as a heel, which leaves the Fiend. They are going, and I said this last week, I said, please don't turn the Fiend into the Friend. Don't put the R in there. Don't turn the Fiend into the Friend. And it looks like they're going to turn the Fiend into the Friend, which I was hoping they wouldn't do. That's the one thing I am not sold on. I am not sold on that being a good idea. But they have no choice now. You can't have a pay-per-view main event with 3 heels. So by default, going into this main event, the Fiend is the closest thing to a babyface that we have in that match. And if you look at the SmackDown roster right now, who do we have? Jeff Hardy is a mid-level babyface. I've not really been overly impressed by some of his recent matches, although I guess in the last couple of matches he's been selling a knee injury. But this is clearly an older Jeff Hardy. It is not the Jeff Hardy of old. He's not as dynamic to watch in the ring as he used to be. But that's what happens. You get older, you get beat up. You got to wrestle smart. You can't wrestle stupid. But he's the Intercontinental Champion. He is being positioned right now as that mid-level or mid to upper-level babyface, but he's not in the main event picture. Matt Riddle, he's also mid-level at this point, but I think you could elevate him to main event in due time. We don't know when Daniel Bryan is coming back. He and Brie just had a kid. AJ Styles is a heel. Sheamus is a heel. So the Fiend has to play that role right now by default, but he doesn't have to be any different. I'm not saying that he has to start acting like a babyface, but I think that's how he's going to be positioned. I think if Bryan comes back soon, you have Daniel Bryan, you've got Matt Riddle, don't forget Big E. Don't sleep on Big E. I know it's early yet with him as a single, but I'm all for pushing Big E higher up on the card. Let's see how he does. And if they have another draft in 2 months, which is supposedly still the plan, 2 months or less, now I'm hearing they might bump it up to late September, but if they're going to have another draft in the next couple of months, then this all may be a moot point anyway, if they just shake up the rosters, because the rosters may end up changing. But to go back to Roman Reigns, because this is a big deal. This is a big deal. It would be like if they had turned John Cena back in 2011 or 2012, when people then had been clamoring for it for years. And we have since learned that there were plans in place to turn John Cena heel. John Cena had new music made, he had gear made, and Vince McMahon got cold feet and says, we're not doing it. He got cold feet, he chickened out. Cena was their top merch mover. He's our top guy. We can't turn him, and they never did. And, you know, business-wise, was it the right move? Was it the wrong move? You could probably make an argument both ways. They made a lot of money on John Cena. Creatively, as a fan, I would have loved it to have seen them turn John Cena. There was an opportunity to do it, I think, later in 2011 into 2012 when CM Punk was hot as a babyface as the champion. You could have done a double turn around that time, but they didn't do it. Roman Reigns was the heir apparent to John Cena. John Cena literally put him over in a match on pay-per-view. That was kind of his passing of the torch moment. And so if Roman Reigns now is finally being turned and he's being positioned as a heel, then yes, it is a big deal. Roman Reigns should have been the biggest thing in wrestling when they decided to strap the rocket to this guy, but he was the victim of bad booking. He was the victim of bad booking and bad timing in 2015. And he never recovered from that. Now, I know some people are going to hear that and they're going to think that's silly. Oh, he never recovered. He only went on to main event how many WrestleManias and win the championship all those times. Yes, he had a lot of success. He had a lot of success in spite of the way they pushed him. But the boo birds and all the people who would talk about how I'm so sick and tired of Roman Reigns. He's the corporate shill. He's getting shoved down our throat. I'm tired of Roman Reigns. I wish Roman Reigns would go away. You could have avoided most of that. You would have had a little bit of that, but you could have avoided most of that. And when Vince McMahon decided to take a hands-on approach with him and his promos, remember that period that we had to suffer through? That's when it went from bad to worse. That's when we had Roman on TV telling stories like Jack and the Beanstalk and uttering the words suffering succotash. Suffering succotash. Yeah, that was a real thing that happened on TV. Like he's a fucking cartoon cat, winking at the camera when he did it. He may as well have plunged the knife into the guy's chest right then and there. Because whatever cool factor Roman Reigns had about him vanished. It vanished into thin air right then and there. It was gone. There was nothing left to cheer for. They had stripped away whatever it was that made the man cool. But I also think fans resented him for not changing in other ways as well. He still had the last remnants of the Shield, the vest, the music. Rollins had moved on. Ambrose had moved on. They were trying to form their own identities and their own music and do their own thing. And Roman was still holding on to the vestiges of the Shield. And I think some people also were sick and tired of that. Which is why I think tonight, if this is the new Roman Reigns, then you know what? He needs to be new. Ditch the music, ditch the vest. Out with the old, in with the new. How come Keith Lee goes from NXT to Monday Night Raw, and on night one, he's got new music and new gear? If they do that with Keith Lee, there's no reason they can't do that with Roman Reigns after 5 years of the same shit. Only I don't think they're going to put Roman Reigns in a fucking dress. But they need to go all the way with this and not half-ass it. Do it the right way. Roman Reigns is going to win back the Universal Championship tonight. That is my prediction. You don't bring this guy back the way they did and put Paul Heyman with him and get the whole world talking only for him to lose. Now, it is a triple threat match. He could conceivably lose without being pinned. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to put the championship on him. And look, that sucks for the Fiend. But it's not about the Fiend. Clearly, it's not about the Fiend. I'm sorry to say. It's about getting Roman over as the new top heel in the company. Why did they put the title back on him then, only to take it away 7 days later? Because they booked themselves into a corner, like they do so many times. They made that match no DQ last Sunday. And having Strowman beat The Fiend would have been even worse. So they got the belt onto him, but I think they got the belt onto him as a transitional champion. The real champion is clearly going to be Roman Reigns, whether it's tonight Whether it's next month, whether it's Survivor Series, that is clearly where we are going. That is clearly the direction that we are headed in. They put the belt on Bray for him to lose it, to get him sympathy, as he now begins his transformation from fiend to friend. And I will say it again. That does not mean that they have to change a thing about the Fiend. He can continue to do exactly what he has been doing. I don't want the Fiend to go soft. But he is now going to be the hero in this story, just like... And it's crazy to even think about that. I mean, this is the guy who put the mandible claw on Alexa Bliss, little old Alexa Bliss, only a few weeks ago on TV. But here we are. Roman Reigns coming back changes everything. And if Roman wins the title, not only do you have, potential rematches or a rematch they could do with The Fiend, but you got matches with Daniel Bryan when he comes back, Matt Riddle for the first time, Big E for the first time. They have some interesting potential matches lined up for Roman Reigns as the champion, if that's what they do. And then there's the question of what happens with Brock Lesnar. Again, does he come back and have a problem with Paul Heyman managing Roman Reigns? Could they set up for another Reigns-Lesnar match at WrestleMania next year? But this time the roles are reversed. Reigns is the heel and Brock is the babyface. Here's the other thing I like about the Reigns-Heyman pairing and Reigns being a Paul Heyman guy. It makes sense. Paul Heyman has always shown admiration for Roman Reigns on TV, going all the way back to the build for Roman's first match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31. Heyman used to talk about how much love he had for Roman's family, the Samoan dynasty. He has always talked up Roman Reigns and his lineage. And now you have a situation where the two of them are together. Why, though, would Roman want to link up with Heyman? That's the promo I'm waiting for. I'm waiting to see how or if they have him take the time to explain why he chose to align himself with Paul Heyman. We know why Heyman would want to be with Roman. But they should still take the time on TV to explain at some point, or have Roman explain why he would link up with Paul. But I love this pairing. We've only seen them together on television for 10 seconds. It's a small sample size, but I'm already invested. This is WWE's chance to right the wrong that they made years ago. And here's another potential wrinkle in all of this. And that has to do with Retribution. There was no Retribution at SummerSlam, but they did come out and ruin the main event on Monday Night Raw. And on Smackdown, again, no Retribution, just like SummerSlam. Nothing. The one thing missing from Monday night when they did appear on TV is that it was the one show this week with no Roman Reigns. Now Paul Heyman appears. We have not seen or heard from Paul Heyman since he was fired as the executive director of Monday Night Raw. A role that they did acknowledge at least one time on TV. I definitely remember there being one Raw episode from the PC. And it might have been a tongue-in-cheek kind of inside joke deal, but they did kind of acknowledge on TV that one time that Heyman had some other role or some power, some authority on Monday Night Raw. So you could play into that on TV. If anybody would have a desire for retribution and a reason to want to get revenge for being mistreated, you would think it would be Paul Heyman. And look, maybe I'm fantasy booking myself into disappointment again. I know I've done that a few times over the years. Sometimes, we all come up with these ideas that we think are interesting and exciting, but WWE invariably lets us down. Time after time after time. Here's an opportunity for WWE to not let us down and actually put together an intriguing story and take it in any number of interesting directions, and that could be one of them, is linking them together in some way with Retribution. Maybe they're behind Retribution. What if Paul Heyman is the mastermind behind Retribution? I think the Retribution stuff has sucked so far, but that could all change once we start putting some faces to it and some people start revealing themselves. Maybe they can tie Roman Reigns into it somehow. Maybe he's part of it. But what if it's Heyman leading a rebellion from within as Retribution for doing him dirty. In that case, they should have Retribution beat the hell out of AJ Styles next week. I wonder what AJ was thinking when he saw Paul Heyman pop up at the very end of the show. Apparently a very small circle of people even knew that Paul Heyman was coming back. Even some of the writers until the very last minute, like day of or a few days before, even knew. So I'm sure AJ wasn't exactly clued in. I wonder what was going through his mind. The man got himself traded to Monday Night Raw to get away from Paul Heyman, and now they're back on the same brand together. I love it. I love it. And then I tweeted that, and I got tweets then. I got replies on Twitter from people saying, well, Heyman's not in power anymore, so yeah, I'm sure he's fine with it. You must be fun at parties. It's called a fucking joke. Laugh a little bit. I promise it won't hurt. I promise. Holy shit. But I'd love to find out some of the guys that Paul Heyman was allegedly supportive of, right? We heard the names of certain people thrown around that Heyman was a big supporter of when he was, quote-unquote, running Monday Night Raw. Ricochet, maybe a guy like Ali, you know? Would love to see them maybe end up being part of Retribution. The problem is, though, you can't just turn everybody heel, right? That's always the solution. We'll just turn the guys heel. You can't turn everybody heel. I still think Ali is a great babyface. So you got to have a balance, though, of heels and babyfaces. It's probably going to be NXT talent on their way up. I assume that they will comprise all or a majority of this Retribution group. But you mix a few main roster guys in there who maybe have a reason to be upset or they were screwed over in some way. They're almost like moles. So you kind of ask yourself, how is it that these Retribution goofs are able to get in the building and run amok and do the things they do? Well, somebody's got to leave the back door open. So it's perfectly believable that there could be one or two or three main roster people who are in cahoots or who are part of them, and they're like moles who are allowing this to happen. They certainly want you to think that Miz might have something to do with it, the way that they portrayed him on TV a couple of times, where he's always late to the party when people come out to go after Retribution, right? We've seen that a few times. That's what they want you to think. Maybe he's involved, maybe he isn't, but they want you to think that he might be. There's something going on there. I think the Retribution stuff could be interesting. It has potential. But all I do right now when I see them is I kind of laugh and I shrug my shoulders. And that's not the reaction you want. That ain't it. But I think Roman Reigns wins the championship. He pins Braun Strowman. And perhaps he wins with an assist from Retribution. We didn't see them at Summerslam. I think we'll see them at Payback. Payback and Retribution. Two very similar words. Not sure if that was by design. Maybe this pay-per-view, though, exists for a reason that we are not yet privy to, right? Because we're kind of asking the question, why is there a pay-per-view 1 week later? Retribution, Payback. Definitely could be a connection there.